This is your best TV show, New York City, Africa on the Move. Thank you for watching us again. Today I have a very dynamic, young, handsome guy tonight in our studio. Thank you, CHERNO, so for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, when I talked to you last time, and I said that, you know, I want to add a show we did 4 months ago. You remember? You said, no, Tosh. Don't show that show. Don't add that show no more. How could you fly from success to success? How could you do so many things in a little of time?
Basically, it's a commitment. The most important thing, I think, in this life is finding things that you enjoy doing. And once you find something that you enjoy doing, it doesn't have to be associated with money or anything else, like giving back to the community. Basically, it's something that I grew up since I was a kid. I always like giving back. So that's one thing that I'm truly passionate. I use my time to do that. But also there are other things in my life that I'm pretty much also passionate about, like diplomacy, politics, foreign affairs, social justice, and all this kind of stuff. So,
did your thesis? Congratulations again. It's on security challenges in West Africa, in area of terrorism. Okay,
so basically, my thesis was more focused in the Middle East, the U.S. war on terrorism. It was like a global thesis that was, looking at why since 2001, after the 9/11 attack, the U.S. launched what we call the U.S. war on terrorism in many different fronts. After looking at it, after 2016, looking at the situation around the world, I think it was more terrorists everywhere than it actually what the aim was to cut off completely terrorism. But what we saw is the rise of ISIS, right? Those were all these terrorist groups around the world. So, I mean, I accidentally kind of wrote the war on terrorism. My aim was more on global development, but I saw terrorism actually was having, and security was having impact. I think when we're talking about specific West Africa in a specific, we're not new. West Africa is not new to war. You have the Biafra War in Nigeria. You have the Civil War in Liberia with Charles Taylor, and you have the United Front in Sierra Leone, and you have the Civil War in Guinea-Bissau. So the recent civil war in Ivory Coast. So, and you have the problem of the Casamas in Senegal. So basically, you have coup d'etats across Africa in the late 90s, early 80s, late 90s. You have, until recently, there have been a lot of coup d'etats in the region. But what is new in the region is terrorism, basically, and that poses a great threat to the region. The reason why it poses a great threat is the fact that the region is pretty much like a family thing. You don't have strong borders between nations, and also like you have a different group that is all over the region. You can find different tribes that are in different countries in the region. And you have the rise of tribalism, and let's be honest, most of the African political parties in West Africa, they are kind of related to the tribe of the leader of that political party. Most of it, I'm not saying all of them. So when you have all this different things, you have corruption, you have malgovernance, you have tribal fights, and you have terrorism, you have economical grievances, you have all this different thing. When you add the terrorism on top of that, is scary. The good example of that is Mali, what we live in today. If you look at the Tuareg, right? The Tuareg has been asking for independence over a century almost, right? Because since the French came to that region, the Tuareg, who are in Algeria, in Niger, in part of Mauritania, in part of Mali, they have been fighting to get what we call self-identification, to have their own state, to have their own territory. And there have been quite a few different wars with the Malian state. But what was different this time around, right, is the terrorists. Because when they launched the offensive in Mali, as they did in previous years.
Okay, we understand all of this, but you know, my question, you did your thesis, right? So on security challenges. So what is your proposal? What did you bring on the table to fight against terrorism in Africa, in West Africa? What do you think about ECOWAS? ECOWAS and you know, is challenge of fighting against terrorism. Do you think that is it more efficient? So what do you suggest?
Right. So as I was talking about, this is what we call counterterrorism, and counterterrorism is not about military, basically. You can use military force to deny a terrorist group a place, like what we call like a territory to operate, but the main thing of fighting terrorism is composed of many different things. Like, as I mentioned earlier, you have to fight in corruption. Why corruption is important in fighting terrorism? First of all, in order to stop what we call financing terrorism, what we have seen, like in West Africa, there have been like a lot of money laundering. A lot of terrorist groups were involved in, you know, selling drugs, opioid, and those kind of stuff. So when they sell that and they get that money, so who's helping them to kind of clean that money to be able to go and buy things and buy arms, to be able to transfer. So you have government officials who are involved in this kind of things. And why the drugs in the region, government officials are involved in that as well. Armed trafficking, who's allowing that to happen, government official, through bribes. So this is why it's important, fighting corruption. Not only fighting corruption, also destroy the economy. I mean, help improve the economy, because corruption kills the economy.
You know, when you talk about corruption, you talk about example of funding jobs, right? For youth. Visiting that, I don't know if we can fix that now.
Right.
You know, no, honestly, you can fight, I mean, corruption in 1 decade. It's gonna take generation to generation. Right. My question is, what are the tools we can use to stop terrorism? If, you know, FBI go after terrorists here, right? Whenever you are, even you hide under the bed of your girlfriend, they're gonna find you. So can you use the same tools here to fight against terrorism in Africa?
And we're gonna come back to the same thing, corruption. Because you gotta look at, when we're talking about terrorism, right, that is one thing that we don't have in Africa that is not adequate, like intelligence, right? Our intelligence is very poor. Most of the intelligence in Africa have been used pretty much to target political opponents or dissidents, not for security purposes.
So this is one solution.
But like, again, and you will always trace that back again, how to have effective governance, right? Good governance. And good governance, part of having a good governance is having strong institutions, right? And why we always go back to corruption, because a lot of people on the system, if there is a strong institutions, all these things cannot happen. And fighting terrorism, one of the biggest things in fighting terrorism is getting the funding, the money, right? Getting the money is very important. And you mentioned youth unemployment. How can we have employment? Is by having a good economy. And having a good economy, part of having to build a strong economy is part of fighting corruption again, right? Fight against political exclusion, right? In West Africa, I'm not just gonna say corruption is the main thing, but also like you have a tribal issues, right?
Let's talk about also the circulation of weapons in Africa. You know, but Africa, you can get weapon wherever you want.
Why? So corruption. Corruption, right? even if the law says you cannot get, so these are the reason why is it important? Fighting corruption, good governance, inclusion, not exclusion. Because what you're seeing here is that I was recently in Africa, right? You go around in some of countries like borders, right? People ask you for money than to look at exactly what you're carrying or who
Okay,
you are.
explain me a little bit. I don't want to lose that part. Explain me a little bit the government fighting against people who illegally have weapons
Right.
and the corruption. What is the link between this?
Right. Here's the thing: the government, there is what we call high level and low level corruption. It depends where you approach it, right? The government, and each government will write laws, right, rules and regulations. Said, hey, we are fighting this. We're fighting corruption. We don't want arms to circulate, right? But if you can walk up to a military and tell them, hey, I need a weapon. And if they can help you, or just like an ordinary person who's selling weapon, it exists in many different places, like someone who's selling weapon, even if some government officials or probably the military, probably the police, probably the intelligence community in those countries, they know X and Y selling weapon, they would tell, hey, sell that weapon, but make sure I get my part. And they turn a blind eye into that. So that's why it's important. One of the things, counterterrorism, there was a charter that adopted by the UN. One of the things that they have to do, make sure like human rights, right? Because you don't want to frustrate other people, even though there is no excuse of using terrorism to appeal for whatever grievances that you have. But if you exclude one group, let's say a tribe, a religion, or whatever group that is, right? You exclude them from the economic benefit, redistribution of resources. You exclude them in the political process, or you arresting people just to put them in jail because of who they are. This can result of what we call insurgency. And insurgency is a group of people who said, because when you have a state, we have something what we call the social contract. The social contract, what does that mean? Let's say we are the people, we give up some of our right and our freedom and give that to a government. In return, what the government should do is to provide us road, electricity, hospitals, schools, and protect us. But when that government cannot protect me, when that government is not giving me the resources that we're taking, I'm not getting enough of it, I would say, well, you no longer represent my interests. And you will see that group rise up, take weapon and say, hey, from now on, I'm going to fend for myself. Guinea recently passed what we call counterterrorism thing. But what I'm afraid of that law, what we'll do, because they said I didn't read the full law, but they said they have the right to arrest someone of a period of time without charging them because they're just suspicious. And that's a violation of that person's right. Under the UN Charter, you cannot do that. Okay. Because even here in America, that's what you have, like that FISA law, you heard much about it, is that when you suspect someone you don't have the evidence, you cannot arrest that. You can monitor that person, survey that person, but you cannot go and arrest them. That's illegal, right? And the problem with that, in Africa, like in Guinea, we don't have, even here in America, is a challenge because every day you have like thousands of tips that person might be involved in terrorist activity or criminal activity. Even here in the state, despite all the resources that the United States have, they don't have the manpower to control each and every single individual. In Africa, I'm not going to pass that. And what I'm afraid also that some countries are using these counterterrorism laws to target political opponent. Okay. Because when you charge someone with terrorism, no one will come to help that person. And they use that like to eliminate political opponent, right? So security thing, that's why is very tough. And what we have seen recently, God forbid, if there is any, as I said from the beginning, in the 90s, you have all the civil war, but it was just insurgent within the state that was fighting because they believe that that government is no longer representing them. They're not getting the economic benefit, or they're either politically excluded from the system. Right?
Okay. Oh, yeah.
But
yeah.
I'm just going to finish this up. But now what you have is the situation in Mali. When a group of people feel like I'm no longer included, they can start to ask that. But what will happen in process, what we have seen, terrorist group can take advantage of that and hijack the whole process and turn it to a different thing. The same thing happened there, the same thing happened in Iraq. Saddam Hussein fall from power. Nouri al-Maliki, then the prime minister of Iraq, who was a Shia, he came and marginalized the Sunnis, right? And the Sunnis rise up to demand their right, right? What happened was all this terrorist group got in and started fighting to help the Sunnis regain what is rightfully theirs. And once they made that success, you have what we call now ISIS. That's how ISIS came out of that group. And that's the same thing you have Ansar Dine in Mali, right? So, and now you have a very weak borders in West Africa. And this can be a huge security challenge if there is any turmoil or political instability in any of these countries.
One of the things that that makes it really hard to fight against terrorism in Africa is the borders, our borders.
Exactly.
So can you talk a little bit about that? In your thesis, did you talk about that too? Did you bring some proposal how to reinforce our borders?
Thank you guys for coming for Guinean First National Spelling Bee. It is my honor tonight to congratulate each and everyone who contributed to this program. It is a program that we found in the United States, the program that they have since 1932, succeeding a lot on it. In New York, inside the school, they have this program. It's help the kids to know how to read, and when they know how to read, they will know how to learn. It's very important. Thus, as a parent, we support this program by supporting our kids, listening to them when they say they have a spelling bee, either from the school or from the community. But before I introduce all the members...
Thank you for inviting me to help with today's spelling bee. I am truly honored to be here. As an elementary school teacher, I am so pleased to see your community putting on an educational event like this one. Education does not only take place within the school building. In fact, success in school is influenced as much by parents who value education and show their children that it is important as it is by having a good teacher. When children attend events like these, which focus on something educational, they are receiving a message that school is important, that academics are important, and that their parents care about such things. I hope today's spelling bee continues to be a tradition for many years and even expands to include competitions in other academic subjects. Without a doubt, the parent engagement we see today will eventually culminate in coming together in the future to celebrate the college graduations of these students here today. Thank you. Your word is prize.
Prize. P-R-I-Z-E. Prize.
That's correct. Your word is stopped.
Stopped. S-T-O-P-P-E-D. Stopped.
That's correct. Your word is stairs.
Stairs. S-T-A-I-R. Stairs.
That's incorrect.
None. N-O-N-E. None. Circuit.
That's correct. The word is tries.
Tries. T-R-I-E-S. Tries.
That's correct.
G-H-E-O-R.
That's correct. Oh.
Spell unknown.
Unknown. U-N-K-N-O-W-N. Unknown.
That's correct.
Phantom of the Opera.
Phantom. P-H-A-N-T-O-M. Phantom.
That's correct.
Same dumb kid.
Use the word in a sentence.
My neighbor's garden is flourishing.
Garden. G-A-R-D-E-N. Garden.
Correct. Next.
N-I-A-B-O-R.
Incorrect.
I would like to remind all of you that if you say the first letter and then you move on and you go back to repeat the letter, it will be an automatic disqualification. You are not allowed to go back and repeat any letters, okay? So if you say the first letter that comes out, that's the letter that we're going to consider.
Number 32nd.
Please spell dawn.
Dawn. Can you please use it as a sentence?
Fajr is at dawn.
Dawn. D-A-W-N. Dawn.
Okay, correct. Next one, number.
His success has made some of his old friends jealous.
Jealous.
Guys,
J-E-L-O-U-S. Jealous.
You are the number 3. Incorrect.
J-E-A-L-O-U-S. Jealous.
R-H-Y-T-H-M-I-C. Rhythmic.
Please spell procrastinate.
Procrastinate. P-R-O-C-R-A-S-T-I-N-A-T-E. Procrastinate.
Correct.
A-B-L-E. Consider.
Correct. Please spell outrageous.
Outrageous. O-U-T-R-A-G-E-O-U-S. Outrageous.
Correct.
And you, when they ask you a question, what comes in your mind?
I become nervous and I want to run
Why are you nervous?
because I have to speak in front of a lot of people.
And you are the winner, right? There were 3 girls, and you are the only boy, right? Were you scared that, this girl were going to beat you?
A little.
A little? Why? Are you scared of the girl?
I know her a little bit.
You know her a little bit? You mean she's smart, right?
Her sisters Hajamarama and Jariu's smart, so I expect her to be smart too, and I thought I was gonna lose.
Okay. Good job, girls and boys. Congratulations again. Thank you for being here. Tell me, are you happy?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So how comes that you be the man, you be the boy? That's not good.
Well, I practiced.
You practice, right? You practice.
I was thinking of the people that I wanted to make proud. That's why I won.
And you?
I was thinking the same thing, that I kind of got a little mad because I got the word wrong.
Are you happy? Are you happy? I mean, you are the third person, right? You are the third winner. You know you are all winners, right? Okay, so tell me something.
Well, I don't feel that bad because next time I can do it next time. Anyway, I only got to practice for 2 days anyway.
What is one word you want to tell your friend for the next time?
I just want to say, just because you lost doesn't mean you're a bad speller. You keep on practicing.
Keep on practicing. Okay, and you, what do you want to tell your friend?
Keep on practicing and you'll try your best.
Wow, that was amazing. Are you happy? Yes? You kind of like, no, I'm not happy.
I wish I could have won first place, but I'm happy with what I got, and I'd like to congratulate everybody that made it.
You know, nobody lost. We are all winners. Is it a good thing for you to be at spelling bee?
Yes, because then you could learn how to spell.
So were you prepared to this? Because at the beginning it was like, oh, nobody know the word. So what's going on at the beginning?
They gave us a paper to help us study for the words that we're going to have for the spelling bee, and then, yeah, that's what. Now we're here.
Okay. So when you saw yourself between the girls, what came in your mind? What did you say?
I've been in 2 spelling bees before this, and one of them I got 3rd place, and I felt like I didn't want to get 3rd place again. So I tried my hardest to be first.
So you learn from the past, right? Okay. So are you coming back again next year? I mean, the next time?
Probably so.
So what is one word you want to tell to your friend who didn't show up to this spelling bee? What do you want to tell them?
That they should try because like it will give them like so they could learn new words and so they could be confident because there was a lot of people in the crowd, so you don't get nervous around them.
So from here, from today, are you guys gonna try to learn more words? Is this give you more encouragement to learn word home?
Yes.
So what is one word that gave you hard time?
Famished, but the reason why I didn't get it, 'cause I didn't hear the ED at the end, but yeah.
So that was the pronunciation, right? All right. Thank you, guys. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
Do you think the word was a little harder for you?
Yeah, I think it's a little harder.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So remind me the word again.
I can't remember.
You think the word is harder, or you think you were a little nervous?
I think it's a little harder.
It's a little harder, right? Okay. What advice do you want to give to your friend who didn't show up?
That they should practice all the time.
Okay. Are you coming next year?
I think so.
Okay. Are you coming next year too?
Yes.
You have your father, your mother, everybody here around you. Do you want to tell the one word?
Thank you for bringing me.
All right.